Their parents insisted they made her look strange. I watched as my brother and his wife showered Mia with love and attention while Ava remained mistreated and overlooked. One of the memories that comes to my mind is from a family gathering. We were all playing in the backyard, but as usual, Ava lagged behind because her limp was making it hard for her to keep up. I could see Mia trying to include her, pulling her along, but their parents were having none of it.
Come on, Mia. Why are you wasting your time with her? You should be making friends, not babysitting the imbecile.
Mia was sad, but she didn't abandon Ava. Instead, she continued helping her sister. As time went on, the differences in their treatment became more pronounced. Growing up, I had a front row seat to the complicated dynamics in my nieces' lives. Mia and Ava were identical twins, but their worlds could not have been more different. Mia, with her lively spirit, was perfect in the eyes of their parents, while Ava struggled under the weight of expectations and harsh criticisms. Ava had a limp from a birth defect that left one leg shorter than the other, and though her huge blue eyes were captivating, their parents insisted they made her look strange. I watched as my brother and his wife showered Mia with love and attention while Ava remained mistreated and overlooked. One of the memories that comes to my mind is from a family gathering. We were all playing in the backyard, but as usual, Ava lagged behind because her limp was making it hard for her to keep up. I could see Mia trying to include her, pulling her along, but their parents were having none of it.
Come on, Mia. Why are you wasting your time with her? You should be making friends, not babysitting the imbecile.
Mia was sad, but she didn't abandon Ava. Instead, she continued helping her sister. As time went on, the differences in their treatment became more pronounced. Mia excelled in everything she did: school, sports, friendships, while Ava felt like she was always being pulled down. I remember a time when they were invited to a talent show at school. Mia had prepared a dance performance, while Ava wanted to read a poem she had written. She wanted to go up with Ava.
Of course, Ava. I want you there with me.
What makes you think you can be up there? Just let Mia have her moment without dragging you along. I saw how disappointed Ava was, and that made me angry. I could also see Mia trying to fight back tears, torn between her sister and her parents' expectations. Another time, during a family dinner, we celebrated Mia's soccer championship win. Their parents lavished her with praise.
Mia, you were incredible. You've worked so hard and it shows. That's how a true child of mine behaved.
Our little superstar, we're so proud of you. We're so glad to have you. If we only had Ava as a child, it would have been so sad and boring. I looked at Ava and saw tears in her eyes.
But I got an A on my science project.
That's nice, Ava, but it's not the same. You should learn from Mia how to truly excel.
She tried to smile as she nodded, but I knew she was screaming within herself. I could just tell her heart was heavy. The favoritism continued to be evident, especially during holidays. One Christmas, their parents decided to decorate Mia's room with elaborate decorations, while Ava's remained untouched.
Can I help decorate my room too, please? I don't need much. Whatever you give to me is fine.
Ava, your room doesn't need all that. Just focus on Mia's. She's the one who deserves the spotlight.
What will you even do if we decorate your room? Limp around? How can we even let you decorate it yourself? You'll just fall and push more responsibilities on us. Forget it, Ava. You're not getting any decorations.
Later that week, I overheard their parents discussing Ava's future.
Honestly, I don't see how Ava will ever keep up with Mia. Maybe it's best if we just focus on Mia's life alone.
Exactly. We can't waste our time on someone who can't make it, no matter how hard we try. I felt so sad hearing that. I wanted to tell the twins, but I knew it would make them feel bad. They were already miserable. I didn't want to worsen the case. One day, at a family picnic, the twins were given the chance to showcase their baking skills. They were tasked with making cupcakes, and while Mia whipped up a colorful batch, Ava struggled to make her own. I watched as Ava worked diligently while Mia tried to encourage her.
I'm sure they'll taste good, Ava. Stop worrying about how they look.
Unfortunately, it wasn't the case.
Mia, these are delightful. You're going to be an amazing chef someday.
Mine is really good too, if you can give it a try. I promise they taste so good. Mia herself said it.
Ava, it's cute that you tried, but you know Mia is the one with the talent. Just stick to what you're good at.
She probably just deceived you. Mia is too nice for this world. She would never tell you those things you made her bad.
Ava looked so humiliated. I could see the hurt in her eyes. Mia looked like she wanted to cry, and I wanted to scream at their parents for their cruelty. In high school, the treatment escalated. Mia joined the cheerleading squad, her popularity soaring, while Ava remained on the fringes, struggling with anxiety and feelings of insecurity. After one of Mia's performances, her parents celebrated with her. "That's my girl. I always knew you were destined for greatness. Oh, how I wish you were my only child. You're the only one who makes me proud, darling."
Dad, I got an award as the best math student. What about that? Didn't it make you proud?
Oh, sweetie, that's nice and all, but it's not the same. Cheerleading is so much more impressive. Math award? That's so basic and boring.
One winter, we had a family ski trip, and while Mia was cheered on by their parents for her skills on the slopes, Ava was met with skepticism. "Are you sure you can keep up, Ava? I don't want you holding anyone back." Ava nodded, but I knew her confidence had been shattered, and they hadn't even stepped onto the slopes yet. When they did, I watched as Mia glided effortlessly down the hill, while Ava moved slowly and cautiously. When Ava fell, her parents laughed at her.
So lazy. Just get up, Ava. Mia would have bounced back by now. Stop being weak.
While Mia continued to receive praises from them, all Ava could do was struggle to keep up. Over the years, Ava's spirit was brought down by her parents' hurtful words, but Mia was always there for her. She would often sneak away to comfort Ava after their parents' cruel remarks.
You're amazing, Ava. Don't let them get to you. You have so much to offer. They're just being ridiculous comparing us. We're both better in our own fields. Don't let them make you forget that.
Mia's words were encouraging, but the constant comparisons and neglect took their toll on Ava. By the time their parents decided to move abroad, Ava felt utterly broken, battling depression and anxiety. Their parents had received a job offer abroad. "We're moving to a new city, and we're only taking Mia with us. Ava can remain here. We're not used to her anyway, and she definitely would be a burden if we take her."
No, you can't just take one of us. We're twins. How can you do this to us?
Please don't leave me. I'll do better, please. Mia will teach me how to be better.
You don't understand. Mia has a future ahead of her, and we can't have you being a bad influence on her. We can't have you being a liability to our child when she's just about to begin her life.
The heartless rejection left both girls feeling devastated and hopeless. Their parents packed their bags and left, abandoning Ava with me without a second thought. "Hey Sam, since you love kids and don't have any of your own, stay with this disabled Ava while we go work abroad for a while." It's true, I was never married and never had a child, but I adored kids. I took Ava in as my own daughter. Though she was sad, I encouraged her and cared for her deeply. After they left, Mia would call every week, sharing stories about her new life abroad.
I miss you so much, Ava. I wish you were here.
Despite the distance, the bond between the twins remained strong. They would talk about their dreams, their fears, and the unfairness of their situation. Ava, through the encouragement and kindness of her twin, worked hard and eventually became a medical doctor, proving her parents wrong in every possible way. While Mia started a cosmetic company. Years passed, and it was time for Ava to get married. Her husband was a kind and wealthy man who treated her with the love and respect she deserved. On the day of her wedding, Mia flew in from abroad to be her bridesmaid. The excitement was so contagious, and for once, Ava felt truly happy. But just as things seemed perfect, her parents showed up uninvited.
Ava, we're so sorry for coming late. How come no one told us?
It was so crazy how they were trying to act like everything was fine after everything they did to the twins.
No one told you both because no one wants you here. How dare you come uninvited?
Oh, sweet dear, forgive us. We were stupid. Now we see everything. Can you ever forgive us? Please forgive your parents.
My parents? You must be mistaken. You both ceased to be my family the day you abandoned me.
They tried to speak more, but Ava wasn't done with them.
I won't let you walk me down the aisle, Dad, if that's what you came for. Samson is gonna do it, and I'm honored.
What?
Yes. All those years you abandoned your duty as a father, he was there for me. You should emulate his behavior and turn a new leaf. He's the only one I consider a father. As for you, you're just someone I used to know.
Ava's parents were shocked by her boldness. True to her words, I walked her down the aisle while her parents sat in shame. watching another couple perform their duties. After the wedding, they tried to approach Ava again, hoping for a chance to apologize. But Mia, protective as always, stepped in front of her sister.
Let her be. Do you not have any idea how much you've hurt her?
We didn't mean it. We were just trying to do what was best.
Best for whom? Certainly not for Ava. You've always favored me and pushed her aside. How could you think that was okay?
Their parents looked shocked, unable to process Mia's outburst.
But she's our daughter too.
Not anymore. You lost that right when you chose to abandon her.
With that, Mia turned her back on them, standing firmly by Ava's side. Their parents shook their heads regretfully as they realized they had lost both their daughters. They left the wedding, defeated, and returned abroad, carrying their guilt with them. But karma had more in store for them. When they got back, their lives changed. They were both fired from their jobs due to poor performance. Someone had snitched on them for always charging customers extra and taking the profit, so they left the company with a tarnished reputation. The company made them pay every dime they stole, leaving them with nothing. They traveled back home. But when they tried to move back into the family house, they were met with cold shoulders from relatives who had witnessed their treatment of Ava. They ended up renting a small apartment and living with 3 dogs, their daughters refusing to acknowledge their existence. My brother later fell ill and passed away. Ava and Mia refused to attend the funeral, leaving their mother heartbroken. She still sends them letters from time to time, but receives no reply. As the years passed, my brother's wife grew old in her lonely home, haunted by memories of the daughter she had rejected. Meanwhile, Ava and Mia's bond grew stronger than ever. Every weekend, they come over to my house, and we catch up like one big family. I'm now like a father to them, and I am happily married with a daughter. Ava and Mia love my daughter so much and often spoil her with expensive gifts. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment below saying, "I subscribed," and we'll do our best to reply to your comment.
The days following Tasha's arrest were insane. My parents were suspiciously quiet, spending hours locked away in their study. They barely looked at me, and when they did, their faces were hard and twisted with resentment. I tried to convince myself that soon they'd finally see the truth for what it was. One night, as I passed by the study door, I heard them talking quietly. My name came up more than once, and the more I listened, the clearer it became that they were concocting a plan to pin Tasha's crimes on me.
We need to act fast. There must be a way to shift this back onto Sasha. If we can prove she planned it, maybe they'll go easy on Tasha.
We can say Sasha manipulated her, pushed her into it. No one would question it. She's been bitter and jealous of Tasha her whole life.
I felt sick. They were trying to rewrite the story to save her, planning to paint me as the villain in Tasha's game. My own parents were willing to have me locked away if it meant keeping her safe. Growing up as a twin can be horrible. People think you're the same, just 2 halves of a single unit. But that was never the case for me and Tasha. She had the charisma, the looks, the charm, everything our parents adored. And me? I was the quiet one, the plain one. It didn't help that Tasha was their favorite either. I suppose I should have seen it coming. My parents were the type who didn't think twice about putting her first, even if it meant forgetting I was there. If she was failing a class, they'd hire the best tutor. If she wanted to skip chores, they'd tell me to take over. I didn't hate her for it, or at least I tried not to. It wasn't her fault they worshipped the ground she walked on, but sometimes it felt like she was using it against me, like she enjoyed watching them take her side. The day it all started, I was coming home from work. I was feeling drained, ready to just collapse on my bed. But the moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. There was a strange, heavy silence in the house, and when I walked into the living room, I found my parents and Tasha sitting there.
Sasha, we need to talk.
My dad's tone was different. I mean, it was always stern like that, but there was an extra. My mom looked at me with that same disappointed look she always wore when she thought I'd done something wrong. And Tasha, well, she looked like she was on the verge of tears. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew it wasn't good.
We found out about what you did, Sasha. We're giving you a chance to come clean before we have to involve anyone else.
I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. What on earth were they talking about? I hadn't done anything. I spent most of my days working or reading in my room. I wasn't exactly living a double life. I don't understand. What did I supposedly do?
Tasha told us everything. We know you've been stealing money, using her name to get credit amounting to $20,000, and making fake investments. We found the documents, Sasha.
It was insane. I hadn't done any of those things, and yet, there they were, looking at me like I was some kind of criminal. I glanced over at Tasha and saw her smirking with a satisfied look. I didn't do any of that. I would never.
Oh, come on, Sasha. Just admit it. You've been jealous of me for years. You were always the quiet, overlooked one, and now you're trying to ruin my life because you can't stand that I'm better than you.
Her words stung, but not as much as the look of sheer disappointment on my parents' faces. They didn't even give me a chance to defend myself. They'd already decided I was guilty, all because Tasha had pointed her finger at me. My dad handed me a folder filled with documents, bank statements, credit card applications, even fake IDs with my name on them. I was speechless. Tasha had gone to extreme lengths to frame me, and it was working.
We're giving you one chance, Sasha. Come clean, and maybe we can work something out. But if you keep lying, we're going to have to take this to the authorities.
The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at Tasha, hoping to see some hint of guilt, some indication that this was all just a horrible mistake. But she simply crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow, daring me to contradict her. At that moment, I knew there was no reasoning with them. They'd made up their minds, and they were going to believe whatever Tasha told them. And they will involve the cops. I was alone in this. I didn't do any of this. I don't know how you could believe I would, but my words fell on deaf ears. My parents shook their heads. Without a word, my dad turned his back on me, leading my mom and Tasha out of the room. I was left standing there, feeling the weight of their betrayal settle over me like a suffocating blanket. The next few weeks, my parents stopped speaking to me entirely, treating me like a stranger in my own home. Tasha, on the other hand, reveled in the attention. She played the role of the wounded victim perfectly, soaking up their sympathy and casting sly glances in my direction whenever they weren't looking. It was like she was daring me to fight back, knowing I had no way to prove my innocence. But then, something unexpected happened. A detective showed up at our door, asking questions about the fraudulent accounts and the money trail. Apparently, some discrepancies had been found in Tasha's story, and the bank had flagged the transactions as suspicious.
I don't know what you're talking about. Sasha was the one who handled all of that. I had nothing to do with it.
Her desperation was so visible, but the detective wasn't convinced. He had too many pieces of evidence that didn't align with her claims, too many details that didn't add up. And for the first time, I saw doubt cross my parents' faces.
Tasha, are you sure you're telling us everything?
Daddy, believe me. I swear it was all Sasha.
But it was too late. They took her for questioning, but she returned that day. However, after a few days of intense investigation, the detectives uncovered a mountain of evidence pointing to Tasha as the true mastermind behind the scheme. The officer traced the money and tracked what it was used for. He even had photos of Tasha at a nightclub buying expensive drinks, and managed to obtain our phone records, linking Tasha to addresses I hadn't even been to. She'd been using my name to open accounts and make investments, all while pretending to be the innocent victim. And now, her lies were starting to crumble. When the truth finally came out, my parents were horrified. They'd spent weeks condemning me, believing every word Tasha had said without question. And now, they had to face the fact that they'd been played for fools.
I don't understand. Tasha, how could you do this to us? You know we trusted you, sweetie.
It wasn't supposed to go this far. I thought I could handle it. I didn't think anyone would actually believe Sasha was capable of it.
Her excuses sounded hollow, even to her. I expected an apology from my parents. They'd been so quick to blame me, so eager to protect her, and now they were paying the price for their blind loyalty. However, when I looked at them, I saw that they had pity in their eyes for her. My mom was even crying. As soon as the police took Tasha into custody, I thought things would finally be over. Even though my parents didn't apologize to me, I decided to forgive them, thinking they would eventually come around. But my parents weren't done. Their disappointment and pity for Tasha had quickly turned into a desperation to shield her, as if protecting her could erase the shame they felt. They were always staring at me coldly, as if I'd somehow pushed Tasha into that mess. I soon got to know that they were determined to save her at any cost, even if it meant sacrificing me again. The days following Tasha's arrest were insane. My parents were suspiciously quiet, spending hours locked away in their study. They barely looked at me, and when they did, their faces were hard and twisted with resentment. I tried to convince myself that soon, they'd finally see the truth for what it was. One night, as I passed by the study door, I heard them talking quietly. My name came up more than once, and the more I listened, the clearer it became that they were concocting a plan to pin Tasha's crimes on me.
We need to act fast. There must be a way to shift this back onto Sasha. If we can prove she planned it, maybe they'll go easy on Tasha.
We can say Sasha manipulated her, pushed her into it. No one would question it. She's been bitter and jealous of Tasha her whole life.
I felt sick. They were trying to rewrite the story to save her, planning to paint me as the villain in Tasha's game. My own parents were willing to have me locked away if it meant keeping her safe. For days, I lived in fear, wondering when they'd try to make their move. I overheard them calling the police station, hinting at new evidence, and making subtle implications that they believed I was the real culprit. I stayed quiet, but I knew I had to do something to protect myself. Finally, I took a step that felt as desperate as it was necessary. I went to the detective handling Tasha's case and told him everything I'd overheard.
Thank you, Sasha. We'll keep this in mind.
After that, I could only wait. I wasn't sure if the detective believed me or if he thought I was grasping at straws, but I hoped my story was enough to protect me. A few days passed, and I heard nothing until the night I heard my parents' voices raised in anger. It was close to midnight when I heard a loud knock at the front door, followed by voices demanding my parents come outside. I crept downstairs and watched as two officers entered. They had paperwork, something official, and before I knew it, they were leading my parents out in handcuffs.
This is a mistake. You can't do this. You're arresting the wrong people.
We have evidence suggesting you attempted to obstruct justice and falsify information to protect your daughter. You'll have a chance to explain yourselves, but for now, you're coming with us.
My parents fought against their arrest, throwing accusations at me as the officers led them to the door.
Sasha, how could you? You're doing this to us after everything we've done for you?
I was in tears while they were being taken away. The next day, when I went to the police station, I discovered what my parents had done. Apparently, they forged voice notes and documents of me manipulating Tasha into doing what she did and sent it to the cops. It was all so stupid. Their plan to make me face punishment for Tasha's crime was so whack despite all the hours they spent planning. Tasha was just as stupid as them. I nearly laughed when I heard it. The signature they even forged didn't look similar to mine. They were really stupid. I requested to see them and they couldn't even stare at me. They were too embarrassed. My parents faced charges for attempting to tamper with a police investigation, and Tasha's case only grew stronger with the new evidence against them. They'd tried to bend the truth too far, and now it was finally breaking under the weight of their lies. They were all found guilty, Tasha for fraud, and my parents for obstruction of justice. When the verdict was read, my parents barely glanced my way. I wanted to believe that they were simply consumed with their own regret. But I no longer cared. For the first time, I felt free. I watched as they were led away in handcuffs, their faces pale with shock and shame. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for them, to reach out and offer some kind of forgiveness. But after everything they'd put me through, I knew I couldn't. They'd chosen their favorite and they'd paid the price for it. After that, I started to rebuild my life. I moved out of the house, cut ties with anyone who had believed Tasha's lies, and focused on creating a future that was free from their influence. It wasn't easy, and there were days when the loneliness felt overwhelming. But I knew I was better off without them. Years later, I heard that Tasha had been released from prison. She tried to reach out to me, begging for forgiveness and help because she was broke, homeless, and miserable. But I ignored her calls. I'd spent too long living in her shadow, and I wasn't about to let her drag me back into her chaos. I later heard she was arrested alongside a notorious gang member, and drugs were found in their basement, so she was taken to prison again. As for my parents, they never fully recovered from the scandal. Their reputation was in ruins, and they spent the rest of their lives haunted by the choices they'd made. They tried to make amends, to reach out and apologize, but it was too late. When they got out, no one was willing to hire them, and the bank had sold their house due to missed payments. My parents ended up working as janitors and living in a small apartment. I'd moved on. I was no longer just Tasha's twin, or their quiet daughter who always faded into the background. I was my own person, and I was finally free to live my life on my own terms. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
Don't call me names. Poor people like you can't speak to me like that. And if you are no more, I won't have anyone questioning my inheritance. I need a soft life.
Suddenly, she pulled a gun out of her coat and pointed it at me. Without thinking, I ran, and I did so just in time as she fired at me, missing by only a few inches. Distraught, I called the police once I got somewhere where I felt safe, and I filed charges against her. Thankfully, she wasn't hard to find, as she had stayed at the funeral and threatened more grieving people with her gun. Eventually, the police showed up, and after a few tense minutes, they figured out that she was out of ammunition. My name is Kim, and I found out something recently that has really thrown my life for a loop. It has been quite the devastating few months, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start off by saying that I am the youngest of two. My sister Samantha is 2 years older than me, and we have had a rather odd relationship. We never really got along well, but we also never really fought either. I tried to get to know her over the years and connect with her, but she never reciprocated my attempts. Hey Samantha, there is a new movie coming out this Friday. Would you be interested in going to see it with me?
A movie? Why would I want to?
I don't know. I just assumed that you would want to do something with me.
Nope. Sorry, but I have plans for that night. I'm going to be washing my hair.
I knew that it was a complete lie and a really bad one at that, but it wasn't the first time that I had attempted to reach out to her. But after so many failed attempts, I just decided to give up. My parents both noticed that we weren't close, but only my father actually cared. Oddly enough, the more that Samantha was distant with me, the more our mother began being distant with her. It was like our mother was punishing her for the way she was treating me. I never did ask my mother why she treated Samantha differently, but it made much more sense later on. Oddly enough, though, the older I got, the more I realized that my distance with Samantha was kind of a blessing, as she acted very unusually. She had no friends, and the odd time that she tried to make friends, people would be completely unnerved by her odd behavior. I truly began to wonder if she was adopted. So years passed, and nothing changed. However, both Samantha and I grew up, went to college, and eventually moved away from home. We saw each other and our parents at holidays, but aside from that, we were pretty much just strangers. Whenever friends would ask if I had family, and I told them how distant I was with my sister, they wondered what had happened to cause the divide, and they were always confused as to when I told them that I didn't even know. Sometimes it just felt like we were born on different planets. One day, however, I got the news that my father had become terribly ill, and my mother was showing signs that she could become ill as well. The two of them had traveled overseas, and while our father had clearly been afflicted with a strange illness. Both Samantha and I went to see them at the hospital. Both our mom and dad were doing very poorly. Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry to see you like this.
Oh, Kim, I don't think I am going to make it. You need to know something.
But what is it, Mom? I could tell that she wanted to say something to me, but just then, Samantha walked into the room and she whispered only loud enough for me to hear.
5, 42, and 6.
I didn't understand what she meant, but just then, Samantha walked over and pushed me aside. She had grown even more rude over the years. The next day, our father passed away, and within a few hours after that, our mother did as well. I was so incredibly upset and disheartened that I didn't notice Samantha leave. Instead, I just worked with the hospital to make plans for my parents' funeral. Only after everything was all set up, I was exhausted, and although it would be odd, I decided that I would head over to my parents' house to get some rest, since I would need to go there next to pick out outfits for them to be buried in. However, when I arrived, the doors were all barred shut. My house key worked, but somehow the doors would not open. It was almost as if someone had barricaded themselves inside. I banged on the door for a dozen minutes when suddenly Samantha called from inside the house.
You aren't getting in.
Damn it, Samantha, what the hell is wrong with you? Let me in. We need to plan the funeral together. Can you act like a normal person for once in your goddamn life?
Just leave. It's my house now. Mom and Dad wanted me to have it. Now leave.
She was acting insane. I had no idea what her problem was. If anything, our parents would no doubt leave all their belongings to the both of us equally. So I didn't know what she was trying to do by barricading herself in the house. I had just as much right to go inside as she did. Hours passed, and while I could hear her moving furniture and even the occasional sound of breaking glass, it seemed like she was looking for something. There wasn't much I could do, but then I finally got annoyed enough, and I grabbed a large rock and used it to smash the back door handle so that I could slip into the house. Even though using the rock made a very loud noise, my sister didn't notice, and so I snuck up to my parents' bedroom and began to go through their closet. It took some time, but I managed to find some outfits for them. However, as I was looking, I noticed a safe with a keypad in the back of the closet. On a whim, I walked over and punched in the code that my mother had whispered to me before she died, and it surprisingly opened. Inside was a large yellow envelope. However, as I grabbed it, Samantha rushed into the room and looked crazed as she saw me inside the house. She suddenly picked up a large flashlight that had rolled out of the closet and tried to hit me with it. In a mad dash, I ran out of the house with the envelope and the outfits, but Samantha still managed to hit me a few times as I did so. Once outside, I ran to my car and drove off. A few blocks later, I stopped my car and tried to get calmed down. I then opened the envelope, and instantly, I knew why my mother had wanted me to find the envelope. Inside, it were several letters written by my mother saying that my sister Samantha was only my half-sister. Apparently, my father had cheated on my mother and a child was born from that cheating. My mother had agreed to let my father keep the child since her mother died in childbirth. The letter further went on to say that while my parents had been exceptionally wealthy, that all of it was due to my mother. My father had been secretly incredibly poor when handling money, or really any responsibility, and so my mother had complete control and ownership of not only the house, but quite literally, all of my parents' wealth. Furthermore, there was also a copy of her will, and she left everything to me. My mother had always resented my father for what he had done, and had vowed that while she would help raise Samantha, that she would never leave her family wealth to her. After all, Samantha only ever reminded her of her husband's betrayal. I didn't know how to feel, and so I just put all thoughts of it on the back burner and got ready for the funeral. While I made the preparations, I didn't see or hear from Samantha even once, but on the day of the funeral, she showed up wearing designer clothing and sporting a lot of jewelry. She had very clearly gone out and spent a lot of money to look like she did.
Oh, poor Kim. It's a shame you weren't as clever as me.
Clever? What are you talking about?
Well, you were clever like me, then you would have gone to Mom and Dad's and claimed your inheritance like I did, but I beat you to the punch. Their house and all their belongings are now mine.
You do realize that that isn't how it works, right? Regardless, this is their funeral. This really isn't the place to discuss our inheritance. Why are you being such a ghoul?
Don't call me names. Poor people like you can't speak to me like that. And if you are no more, I won't have anyone questioning my inheritance. I need a soft life.
Suddenly, she pulled a gun out of her coat and pointed it at me. Without thinking, I ran, and I did so just in time as she fired at me, missing by only a few inches. Distraught, I called the police once I got somewhere where I felt safe, and I filed charges against her. Thankfully, she wasn't hard to find, as she had stayed at the funeral and threatened more grieving people with her gun. Eventually, the police showed up, and after a few tense minutes, they figured out that she was out of ammunition, and they rushed her and beat her until she was unconscious. She then spent the next few weeks in prison, where a psychiatrist examined her and determined that she was a danger to herself and others, and they had her committed to a psychiatric prison. There, they keep her heavily medicated, as she has only grown to be even more erratic and violent. Part of me worries that she will one day be released, but by the time that she does, she won't be able to find me. After she went to prison, I brought the will forward and read, and once I had all my parents' money and home, I transferred all of the money into my bank account and then sold the house and added that there as well. Of course, if I had stayed in town, then I would have had to face her eventually once she got out of prison. So instead, I changed my name and flew to another country where my money will go very far. So far, it's been a couple of decades, and while she could very well still be in the hospital, I take no chances and refuse to contact her. Instead, I just enjoy my days living in a tropical paradise while she rots away in a padded cell. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.
I'm not done with you yet. Get ready for more. I'm going to make you leave this school before me.
When I got to my class, I burst into tears. When I got to the cafeteria later that day, I was humiliated even more.
Oh, the thief is here. Everyone, hide your meals before she steals them.
The students burst into laughter. I felt tears pooling in my eyes again. I wanted to run away. Ever since my second day in my first year of senior high school, I woke up with zero zeal of going to school. While getting ready, I was always struggling to hold my tears. On my way to school, I would wish for time to move slower because I didn't want to be there quickly. Unfortunately, the school wasn't far from my house, so I got there early. You might be wondering my reason for not wanting to be at school. There's a final year student, Liz, who decided to make my life a living hell. The first time we met, she'd asked me for some money to get something urgent. However, I had nothing on me. I'm sorry, Liz, but I have nothing. I could share my food with you, though. For some reason, she got angry. She pushed me roughly and stormed off. It started from that day. Whenever she came across me, she had something bad to do to me. Whenever she saw me, she never failed to shove me off or spit some vile words on me. Once, there was a meeting held by the seniors, and I was in attendance. They'd thrown a question. Seeing no one attempting to answer, I raised my hand. My one insecurity was my stuttering. Nearly everyone at school knew about it. I tend to stutter whenever I am nervous or angry. So, as I stood up and saw the number of eyes looking at me, I couldn't help but feel nervous.
Shut up and sit your ass down if you have nothing to say.
I was taken aback. Before I could even speak again, Liz beat me to it.
You're going to waste everyone's time with that stuttering of yours. Sit down and don't make the mistake of trying to answer any questions here or outside again.
I slowly returned to my seat, nearing tears with how everyone's eyes were boring into me. My confidence was lowered from then. I stopped answering or even asking questions in class. I completely limited how much I spoke because I didn't want to get looked down on twice. One day, while I was walking into the cafeteria, I caught Liz's eyes. I quickly looked away and rushed to a table. However, before I could sit, I began hearing laughter. As I looked around, wondering what was happening, I realized that they were laughing at me, especially the guys. I slowly took my seat, trying to ignore them. As I looked up, I saw one of Liz's friends approaching my table. I immediately got scared, wondering what she wanted. To my surprise, she crouched in front of me with a nice smile.
Don't mind these idiots mocking you. Your skirt is stained. Rush out and get it cleaned. I'll bring you a jacket.
I wanted the ground to open up and swallow me at that moment. I knew I'd made a mistake wearing a white skirt while on my period, but I wanted to wear it so badly because it looked cute. As I stood up and rushed out of the cafeteria, their laughter was even louder. I burst into tears once I entered the restroom. Liz's friend came to meet me there as promised. After I'd cleaned myself and changed, I tied the jacket around my waist to cover the stain.
I'm so sorry about that. You should be careful. Liz doesn't like you. She made everyone see the stain. She's my friend, so I know what she's capable of doing more bad things to you. So, just ensure you avoid her as much as you can.
I was so grateful to the girl and watched her leave after comforting me. I decided to be even more careful and avoid Liz as much as I can. Unfortunately, despite avoiding Liz for one whole week, she still found a way to make me feel bad. I was in my class one day when two people suddenly approached me, visibly angry.
You pretender? You heard us asking around for our notes, yet you kept quiet. Are you that obsessed with seeing people fail?
I don't know what you're talking about. What's this?
You stole our notes. Your secret is out now, thief. Give us our notes.
I couldn't believe my ears. Firstly, I'd never spoken to those girls. Secondly, I didn't steal their notes. I didn't even know what note they were talking about. I attempted to defend myself, but they grabbed my bag before I could utter a word. Stop it. Give me my bag. They succeeded in pouring all the content of my bag on the floor, and my eyes landed on two notes that weren't mine.
There! You're nothing but a thief, Brittany. You did this so we won't pass our project, right? You're so evil.
I was dragged to Liz's class. They pushed me to my knees in front of Liz.
You were right, Liz. We found the notes in her bag.
Immediately, I knew Liz set me up. I was taken to our teacher's office where the case was reported. She was in charge of the project we were working on. After they tabled the matter before her, she was so furious that she kicked me out of the project, leading to me failing the subject. As we walked out, Liz held me back.
I'm not done with you yet. Get ready for more. I'm going to make you leave this school before me.
When I got to my class, I burst into tears. When I got to the cafeteria later that day, I was humiliated even more.
Oh, the thief is here. Everyone, hide your meals before she steals them.
The students burst into laughter. I felt tears pooling in my eyes again. I wanted to run away, but I was too hungry. I hadn't brought any food from home, so I needed to eat. I walked to a table where 3 people were, but they shooed me off before I could sit, drawing more laughter from the students. I took my food and went over to an abandoned table in the far corner of the cafeteria, where I ate alone in tears. When I returned to the class, I found out that my bag was missing. I asked some of my classmates, but they claimed to have no idea where my bag was. Some even ignored me. I was thrown into a state of panic as I began looking everywhere, crying silently. After looking for nearly 20 minutes, I left the class to report to the principal of the school. He'd followed me back to my class, but when we got there, my bag was sitting right under my seat. I swore that I'd looked there earlier, but the bag wasn't there, but the principal refused to believe.
You're going to be punished for playing pranks on me. Do you not know that I'm the principal of this school?
I begged him in heavy tears, but he didn't believe me. I got 1 week of detention. As I followed the principal out to begin my punishment, Liz walked past me and sent me a sly smile. I instantly knew she was part of my bag's disappearance and sudden appearance. As if that wasn't enough, 2 weeks later, my pictures were all over the school groups. They weren't nice pictures of me. I'd fallen asleep in class prior and drooled. Someone had taken 3 pictures of it and spread it everywhere. For 1 whole week, everyone was mocking me whenever I walked past them. The pictures were always shoved in my face. They'd even gone as far as printing it out and pasting it in the restrooms, hallway, and even my class. As if that wasn't enough, 2 weeks later, we had a play to present, and Liz was put in charge of it all. For the costume, she made me dress like a gorilla and gave me bananas to eat. The others weren't supporting that because according to the script, I was supposed to have the supporting lead role while someone else had the gorilla role. But Liz switched them. I didn't mind. I told everyone I was fine, but I wasn't. That turned to me having a nickname from Liz. Even after the play was done, she kept calling me Gorilla. 2 weeks later, I was in my class when I began hearing my classmates whispering and including my name in their talks. I looked around, and some of them were staring at me. I decided to mind my business until someone confronted me. It wasn't until later, while having lunch, that I knew what was going on. Liz's friend, the same one who helped me with my skirt stain, approached me again. I got to know that Liz had spread the news about my parents' divorce and the reason for it. I lived with my grandparents and never spoke about my family to anyone because my parents' marriage had ended badly. While my father domestically abused my mom, she in turn had been cheating on him for long. After they divorced, they refused to take responsibility for me, and my grandparents stepped in to do so. It was a sensitive topic for me, and Liz had told it to the whole senior school students. I ran out of the cafeteria and straight to the bathroom where I burst into tears. I'd never felt so sad. I wanted to know why Liz hated me so much, because I was so sure it wasn't over our first encounter. However, I couldn't remember offending her in any way. I was tempted to report her to the principal, but I didn't want her to just get punished like that. I needed her to feel the same humiliation she'd been putting me through, and in the worst way. So I started planning. There was an event coming up where most parents would be in attendance. We, the seniors, were going to be making different presentations and talking about our hardships. I decided to take my revenge then. When it was my turn to speak, I mustered courage and grabbed the mic. I began with how my parents had separated and how it had affected me. When I came into this school, I dreamed of having friends who would help me out emotionally and academically, but someone who I was supposed to look up to made that impossible for me. Nearly everyone's eyes turned to face Liz, who had a terrified look on her face. I went on to reveal how badly she'd been treating me. She's been bullying me from the 3rd day I arrived, and that has made everything 2 times harder for me. I faced the principal and told him that Liz had set me up when I had the bag issue with him. I also revealed how she'd caused the teacher to kick me out of an important project. Gasps filled the hall with everything I was dropping. I didn't fail to tell them how she'd told everyone about a sensitive topic which I never discussed. If anyone can boldly come out and say I'm telling lies, then please do. I waited, but nobody did. Everyone knew it was the truth. They'd all witnessed Liz bully me. I didn't fail to tell everyone that majority of the students had joined her in mocking me. The principal held a disappointed look, while Liz was digging daggers in my body. The event was immediately ended and investigation began. The next day, the principal summoned everyone in the school. He expressed his disappointment in everyone who joined in bullying me. As for Liz, she got suspended for 1 month. Her name was put in the black book, and the principal swore to include her behavior in her final transcript letter. When she returned from her suspension, everyone avoided her, even her friends. She apologized to me, but I refused to accept her apology. She didn't deserve my forgiveness. Until she left the school, everyone avoided her. I'll be graduating in 2 days, yet Liz hasn't started college. I heard that she'd stolen from her uncle who raised her, and he'd kicked her out of his house. She now lived with her aunt who wasn't rich enough to send her to college. She tried to work at a restaurant, but after bullying the cleaner, she was fired from the restaurant. As of now, she's jobless and feeding from hand to mouth. I guess some people never learn their lessons, and karma always gives them their cup of tea. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I was among the first cops to be at the crime scene, and I arrested the gang, and I was the head detective in the case.
Please, help us. We heard you were at the robbery scene. Tell them he was forced, please. Think of something. Cops are liars. Help us, Vanessa, please.
The memories of all the sufferings I endured, his betrayal to my mom, and how he hurt us both, flowed in. I held back tears and promised to help them. They left happily after thanking me. However, I had no plans to. I only raised their hopes to make them feel as hurt as my mom and I felt. On the day of the trial, I saw their hopeful gaze when I walked to the judge. Here are the evidence for the culprit. We also discovered him to be the ringleader in the robbery. There's also evidence and witnesses to confirm that he's committed other crimes, which includes kidnapping, sexual assault, physical abuse, and murder. Hi there. My name's Vanessa Hugh, and I'm currently 26 years old. I serve in the police as a detective. About 6 years ago, I was kicked out of my father's house by him and his new family. My parents were my idols. They both attended the same high school, but were enemies then. My mom was the prettiest girl in the class, and my dad was the most handsome. Now, you must be wondering why they weren't close. I did too. Well, they were also the most intelligent and obsessed with topping the class. They hated each other because they were both making it hard for themselves. They didn't have a proper conversation even after graduation. However, as fate would have it, they met again after college. Then, my dad had just started his company, and my mom was a marketer. She was in search of a job and happened to hear about my dad's company. According to them, they were both embarrassed when they met each other and burst into laughter. Knowing how intelligent my mom was, my dad employed her. They both slowly became closer until they finally caught feelings for each other, and their life story began from there. They were quite intentional, honestly. Once my dad's company began flourishing properly, he proposed to her. They got married 3 months later. I was told that it took them quite a long time before they had me. My mom had countless miscarriages before I finally came, and that was 5 years after their wedding. One day, when I was 13, my dad asked to take me with him on a business trip. My mom happily agreed. To her, he was going to start putting me through the family business. But the reverse was the case. I was taken to a beautiful mansion in a different country, and was met by a strange woman and a young boy. I asked my father who the strangers were. I'd expected to see men in suits discussing business, not a woman who hugged my dad the same way my mom did.
This is Veronica. I want you to see her like a second mother. And this is her son, Vincent. See him like your elder brother.
I'd have thought the woman was his sister and the boy her son. but he added that I should never mention it to my mom. Throughout the 3 days I was there, the woman was all over my dad like he's her husband. I was confused. Even her son called him dad. At the time, I could tell he was 18 or more than. When the third day finally came, I was so relieved that I'll be going back home. I had gone into my room to take a novel I forgot. When I walked back to the living room, I saw my dad kissing the woman. Before they could notice me, I went back into the room and only left much later. I was heartbroken and confused. When we returned home, my mom happily hugged him and kissed him on the same lips he kissed the other woman with. I was so angry that I left for my room and asked no one to disturb me, using a headache as cover-up. Later that day, my mom came in. I hugged her and burst into tears. She was worried, but she didn't say a word until I stopped crying. "Dad's cheating on you, Mom. He didn't take me on a business trip. We went to a woman's house and she has a son. He kissed her on the lips before we left, Mom." My mom smiled, but I could see the sadness in her eyes.
I'm aware, baby. I don't want you to hate him, okay? He loves you. And us. Having a second woman and son doesn't mean he loves us any less.
I couldn't believe her. She sounded like she knew about it a long time ago. I tried to talk to her, but she hushed me and gently warned me against discussing it any further. I accepted, but my dislike for my father began growing from then. Life continued like nothing happened, but I never forgot about it. Years later, when I was 18, my mom suddenly collapsed while we were having breakfast. She was quickly rushed to the hospital, where she was diagnosed with terminal cancer. We were devastated, mostly me. However, my mom managed to keep a smile on.
I won't die, sweetie. I'm gonna fight it, okay? Stop crying now, baby.
How can you fight terminal cancer, honey? You're going to die. Don't lie to the girl.
I was horrified. How could he say that? Was he so stupid? It seemed as though my mom knew I was close to exploding, so she gave my hand a gentle squeeze before facing my dad.
You shouldn't be so negative, darling. Nessa's here. We should comfort her and not say things that would scare her.
Her voice sounded so weak. I felt pity for my mom, seeing her in such a poor condition. She stayed in the hospital longer than I thought, and I was filled with worry each day. I couldn't go home daily, and I only managed to attend classes regularly. One day, I returned home to meet the woman and her son from years ago, sitting in the living room. I was filled with rage. "What are you both doing here?" The woman eyed me without responding. Her son, who'd already become a grown man, responded instead.
We have come to take over what rightfully belonged to us.
It was then that it was confirmed that he's my stepbrother, born by the woman who my dad had an affair with before my mom gave birth to me. Tears filled my eyes. Before I could respond, my dad walked in with a smirk that showed he's been listening to us.
You heard them. They're my first family, and as you might have known already, I value them more than you and your sick mother. I have always wanted just a boy. I'm getting a divorce from her, as I'd like to focus on only my real family. I'll be requesting a DNA test. Hopefully you're not my child. I'll need to have both of you get rid of.
I couldn't believe my ears. It felt like I'd die that moment. The betrayal, the hurt, all mixed together. I wondered how my mom would feel if she heard about his plan to divorce her for his mistress and son. It was so overwhelming. I nearly fainted. I grabbed my bag and hurried to the hospital. I wanted to tell my mom and prepare her, but she was asleep, and I couldn't wake her up. I sat by her bedside, determined to wait until she woke up. While waiting, I slept off. It was about an hour later before I finally woke up to the sound of people coming in. My heart missed a beat as my dad and his new family walked in. My mom's smile never left her face. He flung the document to her and ordered her to sign it. Tears rolled down my eyes as she did, with her smile still on. She passed it to him afterward. Then, he told her about the DNA test. Only then did she speak.
Nessa is your child and you know that. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sure you'll be disappointed.
Her smile never left her face. She turned to me and I saw the tears in her eyes. I quickly held her hands, crying too.
I love you, honey. I want you to grow up and make me proud, whether I'm alive or not. I want you to have a good life, okay?
I nodded, sobbing loudly. I was scared. Her words were making me scared. She faced my dad and his new family next.
You should have cheated with someone else. She was the same person who nearly poisoned me at prom and who sent assassins to me after our wedding. It shouldn't have been her, but I forgive you. I love you. I always have and always will.
As her tears dropped, she gave up the ghost. I screamed in terror. My dad and the others left me alone with her. I was crying so loudly, begging her to come back, but she never did.
She is dead. We can now go.
I was shocked by what my stepbrother said after that. My dad managed to give her a shitty funeral, which made me hate him even more. He also had the DNA test done, and it came out positive. Life began with me living with them. I was severely maltreated. For 3 years, I lived like a slave. I was made to cook, clean, and even mow the lawn always. One morning, my dad walked into my room.
Pack your things and leave my house. My wife told me you started stealing, and you stole her necklace. I didn't raise a thief. Just pack your things and disappear before I return this evening. I don't want to see you when I get back.
Eventually, after getting satisfied with seeing me suffer, I was thrown out of the house and disowned by my father, simply because my stepmom claimed I stole her necklace and my father believed her. I didn't let that bring me down. I slept in the streets without shame, searching for jobs anywhere. I worked 3 part-time jobs and managed to save to get a house. I changed my name and started my life at Fresh. I went to a police academy after college, and last year, I started working as a cop. Due to my smartness and diligence, I quickly got promoted to the post of a detective. A few months later, my dad and his mistress were in front of me, her on her knees and my dad in heavy tears begging for my help. Apparently, their son had been so spoiled that he turned to crime. He had put them in so much trouble. Not only did he gamble with his parents' home, rendering them homeless, he also stole the company's money and also got involved in a serious robbery case that landed him in the station where I work. The investors at my dad's company are on his neck, as well as his workers. 60% already quit, and the rest were threatening to sue him if he didn't pay up. Their main problem, however, was to ensure their son didn't go to jail. I was among the first cops to be at the crime scene, and I arrested the gang, and I was the head detective in the case.
Please, help us. We heard you were at the robbery scene. Tell them he was forced, please. Think of something. Cops are liars. Help us, Vanessa, please.
The memories of all the sufferings I endured, his betrayal to my mom, and how he hurt us both, flowed in. I held back tears and promised to help them. They left happily after thanking me. However, I had no plans to. I only raised their hopes to make them feel as hurt as my mom and I felt. On the day of the trial, I saw their hopeful gaze when I walked to the judge. Here are the evidence for the culprit. We also discovered him to be the ringleader in the robbery. There's also evidence and witnesses to confirm that he's committed other crimes, which includes kidnapping, sexual assault, physical abuse, and murder. I saw their shocked faces when I said that. I presented the video I'd recorded when I caught him among the robbers. I also presented document of his other crimes. The judge allowed the witnesses to come in, and they testified to his crimes. I'd done so much investigation with the help of my colleagues, and I couldn't be more grateful to them. My stepbrother had hurt and killed a lot of people and committed so many other crimes. Because of that, the judge sentenced him to death by hanging, while the other members were sent to serve 20 years each. My stepmother immediately collapsed after the verdict. My dad stared at me, and I could see the pure pain in his eyes. His tears made me even happier. While their son got taken away, my dad's mistress was taken to the hospital where they discovered she'd gotten a full-body paralysis. On the day their son was to be hanged, I was allowed to follow. I took a video of the whole process and sent it to my dad afterward. The next day, I heard he'd a painful seizure. I felt relieved afterward. I'd taken my revenge on them all, and I was sure my mom would be happy too. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.